Delighted tonight on Thursday, the 13th of January 2022, to have Kevin Mudd as our special guest, first guest of a new year. Kevin Mudd, welcome to a pod full of saints.
Good evening, Dave. Good evening, Lee. Good evening, Jake, and all your millions and thousands of listeners, Dave. Good evening to one and all.
I think we just lost most of them.
Or thousands of millions, the other way around.
Right, we'll do a quick background to you, Kev. You're born in Potters Bar. You went on to join the Super Sawway Saints, of course. 326 games. Oh, 3 fewer than Peter Risley.
One less than Peter Risley, I think, Dave. But as he reminds me constantly, I didn't realise it was 3.
34 goals, not bad for a centre-half. 29 bookings, suggests a centre-half I didn't challenge much. And 12th in our all-time appearances list.
Sorry, Dave?
12th in our all-time appearances list. That's not a bad little record to have, Kev.
I'm on the subs bench now. 12.
Right.
Riz has edged me out by 3. Well, 1 game, I think, by 3 games. Has he included friendly in his appearances?
No. No.
Okay.
No. So you can't sneak in on that. Right, you joined us way back in, what was it, 89, 90 seasons, round about then. If I could probably check my records, that would help. Previously with Mount Grace, Kev, now better known as Potters Bar Town. What happened to you as a kid? Where were you there?
Well, I went to school in Finchley, all boys school, played school football, was offered trials when I was 13 at Crystal Palace. Unfortunately, my dad turned them down because he thought I shouldn't be travelling all the way across London at the age I was. I didn't find out till later on about this. Played for Barnet Borough schools, played for Middlesex schools, left school, then started playing old boys football from the school I went to. Ended up playing at Mount Grace, which obviously became Potters Bar Town. And from there, Les Easton was manager of Potters Bar, well, Mount Grace, rather. Obviously a legend for Enfield and Barnet. I knew he had connections at Enfield, so I approached him after a season playing for Mount Grace and asked him if he had any contacts up there where I could go maybe training, because I thought I was better. I thought I was a better player than that standard, or could try and improve and play a better standard of football. So I ended up, he got me in to go and train with the reserves up at Enfield. And because of the situation there with, I think Tommy Unwin was the chairman, and he was a big builder locally at the time. He was the man putting the money in, but he wanted, the irony was he wanted a greyhound track, and his wife was the one that was the drive behind the football. You know, obviously they had Enfield had Southbury Road, Starlight Rooms, they had the nightclub on the premises. So it was they were a big club at the time, but they were sort of on a downhill slide, should I say. So fortunately or unfortunately for me, because of the predicament where his wife had passed away and Tommy had pulled a lot of money out of the club, pre-season there was more people in the treatment room than anywhere else. There was a lot of players there that weren't getting paid summer money. There was a lot of shenanigans going on. There was a lot of politics going on. I came from Hearts Senior Football, and the next thing was I was playing in the Vauxhall Conference.
You mentioned Les Easton there, Barnet and Enfield. He also played 57 games for us. We always...
I didn't know that. Did he play 57 games for St Albans?
Yeah, back in the early 80s.
Wow. Didn't realise that.
Yeah. Always a centre-half, Kev, or did you get moved around as a kid?
Centre-half, Dave. Excuse me. If I was to be honest, it was, as I say, I went from Hearts County football to Vauxhall Conference. So the leap and the jump with of obviously the standard of football was massive. It was a very, the Vauxhall Conference then was a very physical league. You know, you'd go up and play teams like Macclesfield. You'd go up north, Macclesfield, Boston, Barrow. So fortunately, I was quite physically fit and I was strong. Maybe a little bit lax, maybe half a yard of pace, Dave, if I was to be honest.
Don't let it be said, Kev.
No,
No,
really?
but you know, could hopefully. But I was very green. I was very green. I was, as I say, very fit, very strong. That's when I needed someone to get hold of me. I was playing alongside Dave Howes, who was England's semi-pro captain, Andy Pape, who was England's semi-pro goalkeeper. But as I say, to go back to earlier on, there was a lot of politics going on. People weren't getting paid the monies they were owed and this, that and the other. For me, it was a totally new experience because all of a sudden I've gone from paying to play to a certain extent to being offered money to play. And I just wanted to play the best standard I could. And I felt a little bit back in the day then, I played under Eddie McCluskey. I mean, at one stage, I played under 4 managers there in one season. You know, Eddie McCluskey, Jimmy Neighbour. I think the other guy was Barry There was I remember his name was Ferguson, his surname, but he was from up the Midlands. And then Eddie McCluskey was back in, and then Ted Hardy eventually. So, sorry, 5 managers eventually in one season. But there was a lot of stuff going on. That's when I was sort of 2021. I needed someone to get hold of me and coach me through a little bit. If I'd had Simon Webster back then, yeah, who knows, Dave? Who knows? You know.
Well, Eddie McCluskey and Ted Hardy, you hardly get 2 big and non-league managers, particularly back at that time. You joined us in March 1990, Kev. Debut against Marlow. And you centre half, you marked it with a goal.
Yeah, marked it with a goal. I remember corner came in, rose like a salmon, bosh, straight in, Dave. Unfortunately, it was a 1-1 draw. And as Bernard Tumedy, the chairman at the time, reminded me in the bar afterwards, he said, "Great goal, but weren't you supposed to be marking the guy that scored the other goal?" And we'll come on to Jimmy Bolton at some stage.
Hey!
Yeah. I know that one's going to come in, yeah. So, yeah, it was a 1-1 draw. It was a great start for me. Loved the club straight from the off. Peter Lawrence, Lasher, brought me into the club. Fantastic character. His enthusiasm and his will to win was, you know, it rubbed off on you. It rubbed off. And some great guys at the club, and also all you guys down there, the supporters, really, I took to the club straight away.
Well, you came to us during that one season, as you mentioned, Peter Lawrence Lasher, manager, he's one season with us. You scored in 3 of your first 4 games, Kev. It was a troubled time, but we got to 2 cup finals. You couldn't play in one, the Hearts Senior. You played in the League Cup final against Aveley down at Dagenham. Oh, it all went wrong.
Embarrassing, Dave. Embarrassing.
Well, funny enough, because
Jimmy Howard,
Kev.
So Peter Lawrence was sacked in between cup finals.
That's right.
Sacked in between. I think we were about 9th or 10th in the league. I remember distinctly. I remember it was the AC Delco, wasn't it? Was it the AC
League
Delco?
Cup, yeah.
And that was the cup final. We played Woking in the semi-finals over 2 legs. So we played. We played Woking in the semi-final over 2 legs. They were 1-0 up. I mean, obviously, you were probably going to come on to my left foot pole driver from outside the box that made it 1-1. I was, I'm just throwing that one in there. But we went down to their place, and I remember in the first 5 minutes, Paul O'Reilly was complaining that. In the warm-up, Paul O'Reilly, who I thought was one of the best keepers I played with, especially down there, especially at St Albans, rather. He was complaining a little bit about a sore groin, and in the first 5 minutes, the ball's come over the top, and I've gone to pass it back to him, and I've overhit it, and he's had to stretch right back and push it over the bar. And he's got up, and for the next 85 minutes, I think he was hobbling around. But it was like the Alamo. We were up against it big time down there. And if I remember rightly, Jez Arnold scored a winner. Is that right, Jeremy Arnold? Was it Jeremy Arnold scored the winner down there? 1-0. We won all, and then we
yes,
won
he did.
1-0. Yeah, we won 1-0 down there. Totally against.
No, we didn't. We won 2-1.
Oh, 2-1 was it? Sorry, yeah. 2-1.
2-1. I got a feeling it might have been after extra time, Kev. Rob Smale also scored that game.
Wow, 2-1 after extras. Well, all I can remember is like the Alamo. It was like playing behind Duffs and Cockers.
They were a cracking side, weren't they? Woking at that time.
Woking were a big team. You know, they were a big team, and it was a great result for us. A great result, And then obviously Jimmy Howard came in with promises of sponsorship and X, Y, Z. Is Jimmy still with us, or has he passed away?
No, he's still with us.
Still with us. So he came in with a Seat car guy or whatever, I think, with sponsorship. I think John, Mitch and Bernard's heads were turned a little bit, and Lasher was sent on his way. Scandalous decision, to be fair. And even more scandalous was like the warm-up and the approach to the final when we went down to Dagenham, because it was just, I remember we went down to Brentwood's in a coach. We had a bite to eat, we had a bit of breakfast, this, that and the other, and then Jimmy and a few of his mates were having a few beers, then a few more beers, and eventually a couple of players came up to me and spoke to me, and they said, "What's, you know what?" So I approached Jimmy and said, "Look, you know, lads want to get down to the ground, Jimmy, you know." And he assured me that it was only a short drive down to Dagenham. Needless to say, we hit traffic. We turned up at the ground about 2:25 to 3. Yeah. We then went in, got changed. He then named me. He then spoke to me. He said I was playing up front. His son was playing. Matty was playing centre half with Coxey. So I thought, well, okay. Went out. We warmed up with. We were doing our. I remember they played the national anthem when we were trying to do our stretches whilst they were playing the national anthem. We warmed up with 3 flat footballs. Proceeded to go out and get spanked 3-0, and it was just total embarrassment. It was a disgrace. And I spoke to John Mitchell afterwards, and Bernard wasn't happy at all. I had family come down there, came down to watch the game, and I just thought it was a joke, really, absolute joke.
Funny you mentioned Coxey there. He got an own goal in that game. No, Riley. I sat next to those two for the cup tie at Boreham Wood recently. You mentioned how much you're impressed with Peter Lawrence. His enthusiasm is phenomenal, isn't it? Didn't you then, at the end of that season, follow him to Harrow Borough?
Yeah, because I sort of listen. Jimmy Howard came in and took over. I wasn't happy with things. He obviously, to be fair, Matty was, you know, Matty Howard was a good player, 2 good feet. I think he was he on Brentford's books or somewhere?
He played one game for Brentford. Yeah.
He was on pro, and he could ping a ball. He was a great, you know, he could pass a ball really well. So he obviously had his mindset that he was going to play at the back of Coxey. And and what my final decision was that made I remember we played Elliott Star pre-season in a friendly over at Boreham Woods, and I didn't have a car at the time, so my brother dropped me over there, Richard, and I went into the change room, and Jimmy's named the side, and I wasn't in the starting lineup, so I didn't want to make a big thing of it. I picked my bag up, walked out, got into the car park, and then realised I had no car there. And my brother wasn't coming back until the game started. So this is an hour before the game, and I'm thinking, oh, okay. So I've gone back into the changing room, got changed, gone through the procedure, and then we were obviously subs. And this is how poor he was with his organisation. It was like preset. So the subs were running the line. So he had a referee, and the subs were running the line. And then eventually he came over to me and said, "Right, Muddy, it's your turn to do the line. You do the line." I went, "I'm not running the line, Jimmy." And he said, "Well, it's your turn." I said, "I don't care. It's my turn. I'm not running the line." Yeah. A season ago, I was playing the Vauxhall Conference. I came here under Lasher, and now you want me to run the line against Elliott Star in a pre-season friendly. I said, "That ain't for me, mate. I'm not running the line." So we sort of, you know, that was the parting of the ways, should I say, Dave. You know, that's when we decided to go our separate ways. And Lasher was down at Harrow Borough. He phoned me, you know, he spoke to me. I went down to Harrow Borough. We were in a precarious situation all the way through the season, fighting relegation. He had a very limited budget, but we managed to stay up.
Well, big news out of that, Kev, is that we won 2-0 against Elliott Star. You came back to us. You came back to us during the 91-92 season in January. By then, John Mitchell was manager. It's different character from what you've had before.
Wow. Well, it was, I mean, to be fair, I've always liked Mitch. Even when he dropped me for games, he had a way of, you know, Mitch was Mitch. He had a charisma about him. He's got a way of talking. And I love the fact that he always talked to the fans. He was always communicating with the fans. He was always talking to the fans. But he brought me back into the fold. The club had just sold Coxey to Hayes, which was great because I knew what figure he'd gone for. So I knew what figure I was worth, because me and Andy, I thought, were... I would say we were similar players. You know, obviously some people think Andy's a better player than me, and other people think that I'm a better player than Andy. But I think we were sort of similar ilk to a certain extent. So the club had sold Coxey to Hayes. Mitch got in touch, went down, had a meeting with Mitch, agreed terms, and I was back at a club that I never wanted to leave. You know.
And you started that season with, you already mentioned Paul Price playing with him, and Bob Dowie was in the side, and John Colfer was in the side, then Roy Edwards. How does Dowie rate amongst your other centre halves you played with?
Bob was a proper centre half. Probably thought he was a bit more of a ball player, but Bob was a good centre. I mean, you know, you had, in all fairness, I would rather play with Bob and Murphs than Pricey. Pricey wasn't for me, to be quite honest. As an ex-pro, I thought his positional sense was poor. I thought he basically was looking after number one. A lot of the ex-pros I've come across, you know, in all fairness, I think they've been very fortunate maybe to be where they've been. I played with a lot of semi-pro players that should have made pro, and I played with pro players that I'm amazed have played pro, if that makes sense. I mean, he won an FA Cup medal, didn't he? And also represented Wales.
Yes,
well, when you
captain.
go for a header, sorry, he was
Wales captain, Kev.
Wales captain, really? Wow.
Kev, I had a coffee this afternoon with Andy Thomas, and he wanted me to ask you a very interesting question. He said, bearing in mind, which is basically relative to what you just said, you're in that 92-93 side. A lot of the players had played pro at some point. And he wanted me to ask, how did you feel? Because you are a local lad, you come through local football. How did you feel you had to sort of assert yourself? And how did you make sure that you had to match their levels in terms of these ex-pros coming in and playing all for one side?
I never felt, I mean, personally, I never felt under pressure at all, to be quite honest. I was, you know, I was quite vocal always, you know that anyhow. Without blowing my own trumpet, I thought I was quite a big figure anyhow, as such, and a centre half, and also Mitch made me captain, you know, made me club captain. Never, in all honesty, Lee, it never bothered me whether someone was pro, because I didn't see it that way. I didn't see where I should be in awe of someone because they won this. You know, this whole thing about pro players, pro footballers, in all fairness, there's been so many players that could play pro football. And I think a lot of pro footballers have, you know, you look at the Premiership now. How many players in the Premiership that you look at players and you think, how are they playing? What the standard they're playing? So I was never in awe. I mean, for myself, I was always confident in my own ability. As I progressed, I could have done with that confidence maybe back in the day at Enfield, you know. And I was always confident. I trained hard. I looked after myself. We liked to drink afterwards, but then we made sure that we did our bits and pieces. I didn't just train with a club. I went running on my own. I looked after myself, so that I made sure I was at the peak of where I could be physically, so that I could carry, you know, I could make sure I maintained a level of performance. Lee, you know, the pros never. I mean, listen, there was Gary Brooks, there was John Lacey, Paul Price, Jimmy King. Obviously, Duffs and Cockers had played pro. I don't know about, I'm trying to think, Erskine, I don't know whether Erskine had played pro or Riz. Had Riz played any pro? I don't think Erskine and Riz played any pro. Clarkey, I don't think Clarkey. So there was quite a few. I think it was sort of an even balance, to be quite honest. And I've got to be honest, a lot of the ex-pros I've come across, I'm amazed they play football, in all honesty. You know, I'm not casting aspersions on all of them, because, you know, Simon Webster, for me, was one of the best players I ever played with. You know, I thought he was fantastic, and he improved my game in one season, no end. You know, Cockers brought him in, and also with Cockers as well. But the pros, never in all, the pros didn't bother me at all. If anything, I expected more out of them than they probably expected out of me.
Simon Webster was good mates with Cochrane, and they worked together as trainers or coaches in America for a long time. What did he teach you, Kev? How did he make you a better player?
Just his whole demeanour, Dave. His whole demeanour. He was relaxed. You know, he was relaxed, and you guys know. Listen, I was an enforcer, and Cockers brought that football inside out of me. You know, I was there to stop. Well, fortunately, we were there to stop goals when Cockers and Duffs were in the midfield. Jeannie, Matt, me and Merce, anyone of five will do. Yeah, when we used to Kevin Keegan football days. But Webbo was just so relaxed, and I just remember watching him, and I remember him sort of on his weaker foot, his left foot. He wouldn't try and kill it. He'd just try and ping it. So he'd chip it 20 yards away. The less effort he put into it, a bit like a golf shot, Dave. And the harder you try and hit a ball, the less it goes. So he'd just clip it, and he'd clear the danger. And I watched him his positional sense. And when we scored, he'd pull the two fullbacks in, and he was very sort of an unsung hero for me at that team. I mean, I just thought, excuse me, it was great playing alongside him. He made me feel very relaxed. He made me feel comfortable on the ball. And with Cockers backing, we played a lot of good football. And if you're going to play out from the back as well, you're going to lose. You're going to make mistakes. That's what happens. But obviously, if you look at the Premiership now, that the statistics obviously show that possessional-wise, you retain possession more through playing out from the back than you do from a goalkeeper kicking it long. And he just made me more relaxed. And also his angles. He taught. I watched him a lot. I learned more off Webbo in one season than any coach I've played under.
Right. Lee there mentioned the 92-93 season. 91-92 didn't work for us. We thought it was going to kick on that season. It didn't. Here's the opening lineup from our first competitive game, 92-93. Gary Westwood, Roy Edwards, Peter Isley, Paul Price, Kevin Mudd, Alan Cochrane, Martin Duffield, Dean Williams, Steve Clark, Michael Danzy, Jimmy King, and Bradley Anderson on the bench. What a lineup.
Yeah, good lineup. Some a couple of indifferent players there, but Gary Westwood, bless him. Gary Westwood, what a shot stopper. Yeah, what a fantastic shot stopper. We played one game. Might have been. Did Gary Westwood play against Telford?
Play against Telford?
Yeah, I'm sure he played against. Yeah, because I remember distinctly a guy turning me one way and the other, and he got, very rare occasion.
Well, list of them here, Kev.
It's only one page, Dave, yeah? It's only one page, and it's in pencil. He hit this shot, and I thought, that's a goal. That's it. And I remember Gary Westwood, boom, he flung himself to one side and he made a great, I just stood there in order to save. It was a fantastic save. But you would not pass the ball back to him. No way. Especially when you couldn't pick it up and you had to kick it. He couldn't kick for toffee. He was absolute. No one. But in the end, we'd rather give a throw-in away than give it back to Gary. No disrespect to Gary. A great goalkeeper, great shot stopper, lovely guy. But he would be the first to admit, don't give it back, don't give it. And on the rare occasion, you'd lay it back to him, and
Hi, Helen.
People go,
Hi, Helen.
Good lady, wife.
The Telford game there, Kev. You're not going to want to skip over the previous round of the FA Cup, are you? The 2 games with Stevenage Borough, a fantastic 3-3 draw at Broadway, whatever they call it, Broadall. The replay at Clarence Park. Go on then, talk us through your goal.
This is what I said to you, Dave. I'm sure there's a photo. I've got you sent me.
You've given it. I've sent it to you.
Send me through. But I did have it. There was a photo as well. Bless him. The guy, I think, I got in touch with the chap who took the photo, and unfortunately, he had a fire and a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, he lost. But well, it was obviously a corner. I remember it was York Road end, a corner on the right-hand side as you're looking from Clarence Park. The ball came in, Bob Dowie flick on at the near post. My momentum carried me through, headed it. And as I headed it, I've headed it in and then carried on past the post into and it was packed. It was what a great atmosphere. And I remember running into the fans, absolutely fantastic. One of the best moments I've had down at the club. But we're running back to the halfway line, and Bob's come over and gone, you could have given me a little thank you for the flick on. I went, Bob, I was too busy in the crowd, mate. I was too busy in the crowd. But a great goal and a great, a great win for us. Took us on a little journey. FA Cup's always fantastic, isn't it? It's always great to have a run in that. Look at the non-league sides at the moment. It's for any sort of non-league player. The FA Cup is a fantastic experience if you have a nice run in it and you do well, and the fans as well. Obviously, we had a day out of Bristol, didn't we?
You were in the crowd for the Stevenage replay, Lee. I think you must have enjoyed that day.
That was my first game of the season. I've been to half a dozen games the season before, and I remember Muddy said there that York Road end absolutely packed, and when you scored, I mean the whole place just erupted, and that's when I caught the buzz. That's when I caught the bug, the St Albans City bug, and I turned around to my dad and said, "Dad, what a great goal!" And Dad said, "Well, he couldn't have bloody missed it, could he?" You know what I mean? And it was just absolutely. It was.
Cheers,
from
Dad.
then on, I was absolutely hooked. And I remember taking the programming to sort of school the next day and showing my mates. And they're like, because I think we were at home the following Saturday, and they're like, right, well, let's just go and see what all the fuss is about. And to this day, one of them is coming down to the Cheshunt game on Saturday, and they've been my lifelong friends, but City fans, more importantly, for old meets throughout, and fantastic memories from a great season.
You're right, Lee. We were at home the following Saturday against Hayes in the FA Trophy, funny enough, bearing in mind what's coming up this weekend. It's ironic that your good lady wife should walk in, Van Kev, because those two Stevenage matches, they were quite significant moments in your life, weren't they?
Well, yeah, the replay, yeah, I met my good lady wife after, I think, the first game on the Saturday. I was at the townhouse in Enfield, which is now a block of flats. And you used to have to keep the jacket and tie on there, Dave, back in the day. You couldn't take the jacket off till a certain time in the evening. How old is that? Yeah? Try telling that to your kids. God, dear. So we met, and she came along for the replay on the Tuesday. And that was our first official date. And to be fair, since then, Dave, she's never looked back.
Yeah, well, I would have thought taking a new girlfriend to a St Albans City match for your first date is going to win it for anybody.
All day long. Well, look at Woodsy. There you go. So, Woodsy, it was your first game and it was her first game.
we had a question, actually, Kev, from Colin. That Stevenage goal, is that your favourite goal in a City shirt, or do you have a different one? He also suggested the Dagenham goal in the trophy.
Oh, the Dagenham volley, the Dagenham left foot volley. Well, I didn't have a clue where it was going to be, honest, Jake. Yeah. I remember it came over my shoulder, and I just remember thinking, just make a good connection. Don't try and smash it. Just make a good and watch. Also, they always say, watch the ball until you strike it. Watch the ball. Don't look at where you're hitting it. Watch the ball. And it came over my shoulder. I hit this left foot volley. I think it was just on the edge of the box, 18-yard box. And I'll be honest, I didn't even know it had gone in until it had gone in. I just hit it, and I hit it, and I knew it was a good connection. But that was a good goal. I mean, I think the Woking one as well. The Woking one was a massive goal at that time because we were under the cosh, and but I think we were 1-0 down, and that equalised to 1-1. But it's my favourite from the point of view of just the elation and the momentum taking me into the crowd and the whole, and obviously also my good lady wife, who that was my first date. There you go. There's not many people take their first date to St Albans.
Your goal at Woking.
So I would say, yeah, Jay. I'd say, sorry.
Judge, your goal at Woking, that was financially beneficial to a lot of City supporters down there, because the Woking supporters kept pelting us with coins after that.
They weren't too happy then, Dave.
They weren't too happy. 92, 93 then, Kev. We got through to the first round of a cup. Cheltenham, it wasn't one of our better performances, was it? A crowd of over 3,000. We froze, didn't we? All we got was a Martin Duffield penalty.
Did I play that game?
I shouldn't think so. We lost. You couldn't have done.
I don't think I played that game.
No, you didn't. No wonder we lost.
There you go. Well, Dave, say no more. Say no more. So, I was on the bench. I don't think.
No, I've only got a line up from the games you played in. The others are insignificant, obviously. Run us up in the league. As a player, not getting promoted, supposedly because of a tree in the terraces. What was that like?
Listen, we all know that Bernard ran for the high ground when there was a possibility of us going up. Yeah, I think there was someone pressed the panic button where they thought, "Hold on, this is going into big boys football now." Yeah, and it's ironic that the tree disappeared a few years later. Yeah, I think as a club, if we had wanted to go up, the tree wouldn't have been an issue. Financially, I think we probably weren't ready for it, Dave, altogether. In all fairness, it's a different ball game, and it's even more different nowadays. The conference, it's near enough full time. As a player, yeah, it was disappointing, but then again, we didn't win the league, did we? So you're going up by default to a certain extent. I mean, us and Cheshire were hammer and tongs all season. We had some great games with them. I remember Clarence Park. We played them in the fog. Was it 0-0, 1-1, Dave?
1-1.
I think it was 1-1 in the fog. There was 3,500 there. I think Steve Truelock gave me man of the match because no one could see he was playing at the time. So it was all I couldn't see the end of the pitch, Dave, to be quite honest. So, but all I remember is that he gave me. I got a CD player for the car, so that was very nice at the time because Steve was working in the car parts industry at the time, so that was all good. Audio car parts. Yeah,
he was working for Bennett's back then, Kev. He was working for Bennett's, and I think he even put it in for you free of charge, and he's got no memory of it whatsoever.
The bill's in the post. Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice. The thing is, we probably had a good enough team to survive in the conference, but the infrastructure maybe wasn't there. I would say, I think Bernard maybe was massively concerned about the financial side of it, and obviously, yeah, the tree. Hold on, the tree, yeah. And Chesham, yeah, as you put me quite right, Dave, in my interview with you before, there was some problems behind the scenes at Chesham, yeah.
Well, they didn't want to take that financial risk that you mentioned, which back then clubs did. They weighed things up. Getting in the conference was going to be a huge financial commitment, like it is now. But most clubs, they do it by going professional. Can you see us ever going professional full time?
If we get the stadium, if John and if Lawrence and John achieve their objective, and I know there's different people have a lot of different thoughts on this. If we get the stadium, then I can see possibilities of a full time of going to. If we don't achieve a stadium, we're going nowhere near. Yeah, but I can see. I could see in 5 years' time us going full time. Yeah, I could see that. I could see a situation of academy being involved. I mean, you look at Boreham Woods. Danny Hunter has the academy there, and I think a lot of the guys are on the coaching staff, which he encompasses in their playing situation as well. So these guys, there's probably quite a few of them that are involved with the coaching of the academy and everything else, and that's how they structure it so they can train. I mean, listen, you tell me, what is full time, Dave? What do people consider full time now? I mean, Premiership players train what, 2-3 hours a day? if that's it, you know, let's be honest. But it's the financial implications, you know, it's the financial side. It all comes down to money, Dave. And if we achieve the objective of a new stadium, there'll be more financial backing. There'll be lots of other different bits and pieces. There'll be hopefully a couple of 3G pitches that that are very popular and in demand, and those things can be rented out. And then the structure of the club can be dealt with differently. If there's a banqueting suite, then there's a lot of money can come in from that. It all depends on the club going forward about, you know, whether we achieve the objective of a new stadium.
Would you have ever wanted to go full time? Had St Albans been in that position back then? Bearing in mind you've done rather well with your scaffolding business.
Well, it's a similar situation to say Stevie Clark. You know, Stevie Clark was obviously could have played pro. We all know Steve could have played pro level. I'm surprised there wasn't teams higher up looking. I know there was teams in Division 2, Division 1 looking at him. You know, or if you like, going back in the days of 1, 2, 3, 4, before the Premiership and the Championship. So, you know, I'm surprised there wasn't. I don't know. I think Cocker said that Charlton were looking at him. What did he say back in the day? Or there was different. There was a lot of interest in Clarkey, but obviously Clarkey had a good job. He was earning a good wage at St Albans, and you know, he was offered pro terms on a couple of times, and he turned them down. Yeah, I would have loved to have played full time. Would have loved to have played full time. Financially, don't know. You know, that's something that would have had to be addressed at the time, Dave. But to be paid to do something you do part time is great. But to do that, to get that, you know, to say you're a full time footballer is fantastic. You know, but financially, don't know. You know, it would have had to be down to Bernard.
Right. Before we leave the 92-93 season, Kev, but we played a match on the day of the Grand National, which I think there's some controversy in that, if I remember rightly as well. Yeah, I think you might remember the game we're going to mention. Carshalton Athletic away. You stayed on the pitch for 45 minutes for Mitch. I don't know, he'd had enough or something. We were 3-0 down at half time. We're taking the centre half off at half time. Sounds like he's taking the blame for the 3 goals.
Well, I was told so my remit was to keep close. So my remit was to keep as close to Jimmy. Well, keep an eye on Jimmy Bolton. Yeah, there was no man marking situation there, because I would argue the toss with anyone. But 2 of the goals he scored were from corners, Dave. We've had this conversation before, and Clarkey threw me under the bus, and so did Cockers. When I listen to Clarkey's.
Well, they can't both be wrong, though, Muddy, could they?
No,
you know
no.
I mean?
Clarkey didn't know what was going on half the time anyhow. And Cockers was too busy. He was too busy. He never came back over the halfway line anyhow, Lee. Yeah. But I would beg to differ, Dave, because 2 of the goals, I'm sure you're the club historian, 2 of the goals were from corners, yeah? So I'm hardly going to be marking Jimmy Bolton from corners, but however, I was taken off. We did go and win the game 5-3. I mean, any players allowed 1 bad game a season, I would admit that.
I don't know what to say, Kev, because I watched Ray Stanton's videos just before we came on here, and it doesn't look like any of them came from corners, but yeah, Ray had a bad angle.
We'll beg to differ on that one, Dave.
That was a sorry, Kev.
Will always be a bone of contention, that one.
But what a great day it was.
Who was I playing with at the back? Bob?
Yes, yeah, you were. Yeah, you had Erskine Smart and Steve Scott, and yeah, you were alongside Bob.
I can't even blame Pricey then.
Well, sure you will.
he was coaching me from the sidelines.
Yeah.
Mitch went at the end of the season, citing the frustration at us not winning promotion or being given it after Chesham turned it down. Steve Ketteridge came in as manager. Did that change things much for you?
I made the most outfield appearances that season, was club captain. Spoke to Steve Ketteridge afterwards. His approach was that I was earning too much money, which was never an issue for me because I wasn't earning too much money. There was probably 3 or 4 players earning more money at the club than me. Never interested me the money I was being paid, because I could have earned more money elsewhere. but I love playing for the club. So I said to him, okay, if you want to do it that way, then we'll do it on a, we'll do it on a basic appearance, and we'll do it on bonuses, because I've played 56 games this season. Most outfield players that has made, or rather, I made the most outfield appearances, apart from a goalkeeper, obviously. So if you want to do it that way, then we'll do a basic wage, and we'll do it on bonuses. Yeah. To which I didn't hear from him again. So for me, utter disgrace the way he treated me. Utter disgrace. Got no. For me, it was very poor, and I think that showed with. Showed Mitch got in touch with John Ryan. Well, he met John Ryan from Sittingbourne, and I ended up going down to Sittingbourne. And then I played down there. Unfortunately, I played down there for 11 games. We were unbeaten. We beat Dover in the FA Cup, beat them in the replay. I scored the winner, Dave. Say no more. Local derby. They were top of the conference. We were top of the Beezer Homes. I felt I was treated really, really badly, Dave. Really, really bad. I was really upset with that. Really upset with that. Not to even get a phone, not to even have a chat at the table, yeah? So I played 56 games, was club captain. We had a fairly successful season, and I got bombed. Simple as that, got bombed. And fortunately, he got bombed as well, because that showed what happened to him. So there you go. What goes around comes around, Dave.
Your records are even better than that, Kev, actually. 92, 93. Gary Westwood, a goalkeeper you mentioned, he played in most games, 71 out of 76. You played in 61 games. So did Sean Brett. Top appearances.
Games.
Top outfield player was Dean Williams, 62 games.
62. Well, I played more than 56 games.
You did.
So,
yeah.
But I wasn't the top. Maybe that's why he didn't talk to me, because Dean Williams had played more games than me. I thought I was treated really badly. Really badly.
When you were,
there you go. Listen, that's football, mate. That's football.
When you were Sittingbourne, you got a back injury, didn't you?
No, I didn't know. I'd tell you what happened. Unfortunately, we played. I went down. So it was ironic, really, because a week before the season, Dave, I didn't have a club before the season was starting. So maybe my ignorance was that I thought the phone would ring and people would be in contact, and this was going back before mobile phones. This was landlines. There was no mobile phones then, and I probably should have tatted myself about a little bit. I went down. I didn't, because I thought people would come to me, and it wasn't being big-headed or arrogant. I just thought as soon as someone finds out that I haven't been signed, someone will be in touch. So I just waited. I didn't really push myself about at all. But then I realised, hold on, no one's making contact. I went down to Hendon. I did a training session with Hendon. Peter Taylor was manager down there. He just signed Bob Dowie. So he signed Bob. So he said to me, I'd love to sign you, but I've signed Bob. And out of nowhere, John Ryan spoke to me from Sittingbourne. They were in the Beezer Homes. I went and played a friendly against Cole Shorten at Cole Shorten. Did all right in that. And he said to me, look, I've got 4 centre-halves. I'd love to sign you. So week before the season starts, I've got no club. So I thought, okay, well, we'll see what happens. We'll go with the flow. And ironically, the Friday morning before the season started, my brother had a sandwich shop in Potter's Bar, and I left because myself and Helen were renting a flat next door to it, and we didn't have a phone, we didn't have a landline, So I gave him as contact. So to cut a long story short, I was working for this firm called GLS Scaffolding. The supervisor came out and said to me on the Friday morning, your brother's phoned the office. You need to phone your brother. This guy's trying to make contact with you. John Ryan, I eventually got through to John Ryan. He said to me, I've got 3 centre-halves out for tomorrow. 2 are down injured and 1's ill. I've got 1 centre-half. Would you play? I said, well, yeah, I'll play. So he drove up from Sittingbourne on the Friday night. We signed a 4-match contract, which was great because in all fairness, it was I had terms that I was quite happy with for 4 matches, because he's not going to come all the way up from Sittingbourne to not do a deal, to not do it. And these are the days of the fax machine. Yeah? Remember you had to get the faxes in, sign people on with make sure it goes through to the FA. So he's drove up from Sittingbourne. We did he came up Friday night. I signed a four match deal. We won the first 4 matches. I played with Neil Wembley at the back. There was Stevie Lovell was there, ex Crystal Palace. Mark Barnum, ex Norwich. Keith Day. They had a load of ex pros, because what had happened was they'd sold their old ground to Tesco's or Sainsbury's, been relocated with this fantastic stadium with a greyhound track round the outside, and they had loads of money. And they were spending it. And I didn't go there I just wanted to play. So it was great for me. This guy's come out of nowhere and played the first 4 games, played with a guy at centre half, Neil Wembley, went on to play for Wolves. I think he's now assistant manager for New Zealand. He could be manager or assistant manager at New Zealand, but what a player. What a great player. I mean, I would be the organiser and the vocal man and the enforcer, Dave, to a certain extent. And what's the best way of describing him? I'd probably be the scone and he'd be the cream and the strawberries. Yeah, that's the best way I could equate it, because he was just fantastic. He had pace and he was a lovely guy. We won the first 4 games. So John Ryan said to me, you're going to come, I suppose you want to come and see me, don't you? I said to him, well, in all fairness, John, I think you want to come and see me, don't you? So we sat down, had a chat. I went into his office, sat down, and I knew what was going on there. There was a lot of money there. And as I say, before with St Albans, the money it was never about the money for me. I was treated disgracefully by Steve Ketteridge, and I was really annoyed that he never came back and even spoke to me. He didn't even come back and speak to me. So this time round, I was a little bit more sharper. So I sat down and spoke to John, told him what I want. He came up, tapped me on the shoulder. He said, son, best thing you can do is walk out that door, shut the door, open it, come back in, sit down, and we'll start again. So I said, what, am I strong in it a bit, John? He went, yeah, you're strong in it a bit. So let's have a proper chat. So we signed a deal, signed a 1-year deal, I think I played 13 games actually, and I tore the cartilage in my left knee. So do you know what I did as well? I changed my studs at half time. I was slipping a little bit, put longer studs in, worst move I ever did. And 15 minutes from the end, went to turn, caught my boot in the turf, and I felt something go on my knee. Wasn't too sure. Had a bit of treatment. It was sore. Finished the game as you do as a centre half. That's what we do, centre halves. Finished the game with a torn cartilage. Had that. Unfortunately, the week beforehand, he kept saying about what they said was they wanted you to do. They had healthcare policies, but you had to pay them, and they would reimburse you because of the way it worked out with the Norwich Union. It was a cheaper policy or whatever. Fortunately, the week before, he kept chasing me for this check. So I gave him a check the week beforehand. A week later, I tore my cartilage. So I was had the cartilage done. And unfortunately, coming back from that, I did damage to my right knee. So I was out for the season. And then obviously, he wanted me to come back. He wanted me to come back, but they were going to do a situation, a match by match, if you like, situation. And then Cockers came calling, and the rest is the rest.
Yeah, John Ryan, that's the former Luton player. You mentioned Steve Lovell there. He had 1 game for us.